talk. Hello, my loves, and thank you so much for joining me on the Get Your Guide Coaching podcast today. I have a very special guest all the way from Paris, France, girl, by way of Toronto, by way of England, London, England, right? We have Coach Kelly here. Coach Kelly, she is a self-love coach and she helps her clients love themselves so that they can start to really love and be loved by others. Kelly, sorry, did I call you Coach Kelly?
Yeah, because my last name, but it's okay. I
No,
can
no,
just
no,
say,
it's not okay. It's not okay.
okay,
Let me do that again. Let me do that again.
it's
Uh,
confusing.
no, it's not
Everyone does it.
confusing. No, it's not confusing. I'm going to do it again.
Okay,
Um,
Abby.
yes, I'm just trying to figure out where I should start from.
Okay.
Um, we have a special guest here today, Coach Abbey, and she is a self-love coach and she helps women love themselves so that they can love and be loved in their relationships. Coach Abbey, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're here today with us because we have a special topic that we're talking about today, and that's all about the nice girl syndrome that I think so many of us kind of get into without us even knowing about it. But before we get into that, why don't you talk a little bit about your business, what you do, and how you serve your clients?
Yeah, sure. So, as you know, my name's Abby, Coach Abby, as they call me, and I'm a self-love coach, and I help women heal, rebuild, and love themselves more without feeling guilty. And I basically focus on them forming a better relationship with themselves and to help them get over their exes, because I find so many women cling on to an ex,
Yeah.
and most of the time, the ex isn't even worth holding on to.
Like almost all of the time, right?
Yeah, literally, yeah. We're being honest all of the time, yeah.
Yeah, if they're an ex for a reason. So I completely understand that. Now, how did you get into this work, girl? Because everyone, if you're like a love coach, dating coach, relationship coach, there's always an interesting story in terms of how you got into this work. So, what is that story for you?
Woo, well, it's a story. Like my whole dating life was an absolute disaster, constantly getting ghosted, breadcrumbed, etc., etc. And on
And for
top of that,
those of the people in the audience, the listeners who don't know what breadcrumbing is, can you kind of explain that to them?
yeah, so it's kind of like if you think of like breadcrumbs, it's almost like a guy throwing crumbs at you. So every once in a while, he'll reach out and lead you down a trail of picking up crumbs, and you think, oh, I'm going to get the whole loaf. But no, you're constantly getting crumbs, and sometimes the crumbs stop, or sometimes the crumbs continue. It's almost like a dog throwing a bone, but you're just getting crumbs. You're not getting like the
Yeah.
whole slice.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that there's some
Yeah.
people out here like, what's breadcrumbing? And it's like, yeah, definitely when somebody's like reaching out or texting you every couple of weeks, like, hey, what's up? Let's do something. And then you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's do something. And then like, and then you don't hear from them again. And then they'll do it again in a week or two. Yeah, definitely. So
Exactly.
you were saying that you were being ghosted, that you were being breadcrumbed.
Yeah. And on top of that, I had a horrible work experience. I was working in a job. I had a toxic manager that was absolutely awful. And I was so stressed out that I ended up getting Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh my.
And yeah, once I finished treatment, I decided to reevaluate my life. And I was looking at some of the patterns of my dating life, my working life, and I realized that I was just basically lacking self-love, because when I
Yeah.
looked at most of the things that I let slide, it was because I had a lack of self-love that I didn't even know. And that was kind of like heartbreaking for me, because I heard a little voice say to me, Abby, do you love yourself? And I was like, yeah, of course, of course I love myself. But then
Yeah.
when I looked at what was going on and what I was allowing to let slide, how I was allowing guys to basically treat me, I realized, no, girl, you lack self-love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably really hard to swallow.
It was a hard pill to swallow, but I'm glad I swallowed it because it made me change my whole life around. And I find sometimes when we get real with ourselves, two things happen. We make improvements, or we backslide and we can get upset with ourselves,
Yeah,
angry, frustrated. And I chose to go down the self-improvement road and help women to do the same.
that's amazing. I'm so glad that you did, girl.
Me too.
So let's get into this, right? Because, we talked a little bit beforehand and you self proclaimed yourself as the nice girl. Where do you think that came from?
I think it came from me just wanting to people please and not wanting to upset people. I'm very non-confrontational, so I just felt like being the nice girl, just shut up, get on with it. I think, yeah, it came from my need of not wanting to disappoint and just wanting to be liked as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What I often find with the what I call nice girl syndrome, because like half of my clients have it, is that when we grow up, oftentimes we feel like we have to be perfect, that we can't
yeah,
be anything besides perfect, because if we aren't, people are not going to love us. Or that sometimes when we grow up in a certain household situation where things are can be somewhat chaotic, that you don't want to add to the drama or the chaos, and so you want to make sure that everything is copacetic and good with you, so that again, people can love and accept us and feel like we're worthy. So, you know, I'm so glad that you're self-proclaimed and you're not ashamed of it, because acknowledging is kind of like the first like step in terms of figuring out if the nice girl syndrome is working for you or not, right?
yeah.
So you talked a little bit about your dating past, but how do you think that being quote unquote the nice girl hindered you in dating and relationships?
Well, if I was, for example, so some of the guys, they would ghost me, which was absolutely pretty much frequently, or they would call me up like last minute, let's just say like after 9 p.m. And I lacked boundaries, I guess. So they would be like, hey, want to hang out? And I would be like, "Mm, okay, but I really want to say no." And
Yeah,
so it allowed them to basically just walk all over me, and they could basically take from me, and I'd be like, yeah, sure, okay. But when it came to me wanting to speak up for myself, I was basically the nice girl. I just didn't want to rock the boat or say anything or ask these questions like, where is this going? Or where have you been? I just wanted to just be the nice girl basically and just play it cool and not be like a problem.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you have considered or focus on self-love, right? Because one of the things that I think is really important to realize is that when we are the nice girl, ultimately what we're doing is we are putting the needs, desires, emotions of others before ourselves. So when a guy reaches out to us and says, hey, let's hang out now, we're thinking, what's the most convenient thing for him, right? Instead of what's going to make me feel the best, right? And oftentimes he's going to do what he wants to do, because as humans we're selfish beings anyway, and so we often do not get our needs met. So I think it definitely can kind of like hinder so many other parts of dating and relationships as well. I'm so happy that you were sharing that, because I'm sure our listeners out there are definitely going through similar experience or have been through similar experiences. How else did it kind of hinder you or not help you, achieve some of your love goals as the nice girl?
It basically meant that guys just probably felt like I'm not affirmative, I'm not able to speak up for myself. So they basically just did what they want, and I wasn't able to get commitment from them because it's kind of like they can take from me without committing to me. So I was never really able to get that commitment that I wanted, like that solid relationship. So when these what are we conversations that I was too scared back then to speak about, why would they even consider committing to me if they're literally getting what they want from me? Girlfriend benefits
Yes.
without me being a girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so important. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because so many people do this. And I think this is where, generationally, we may have learned from our moms and grandmas, like, just give, just do. And then suddenly these men are just going to be like, she's my wife because she's already acting like she's my wife. So I guess she's my wife or girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
That's not how it happens nowadays.
No, not now. No, definitely not.
Probably didn't happen as much back then either, but it was just maybe a regular thing. But
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that because that is like the number one way for you not to get into a relationship.
Absolutely.
There's
And I
no
think,
incentive. There's no incentive to the man for the man. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
yeah. No, I was going to say that I think as well, that's basically that. Like for men, it's like, well, why would I? And I found that they would go for women who had, you know, boundaries, made them wait. So it's kind of like, okay, they would be getting what they want from me. Meanwhile, they're working on another girl. And then I could see, oh, okay, they were just using me for certain things, but here they are happily committed because
Yeah.
this girl had self-love. She loved her. The other girls like loved themselves enough to say, absolutely, we're gonna wait or we're gonna do it my way at my pace, which is something I just never had the courage to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting. What I've been picking up over the last couple of sentences is you've been mentioning, I think, or circling around this notion of sex, right?
Yes.
Waiting, uh, you know, on your terms, things like that. Talk to me about being the nice girl and sex in dating and relationships and how you navigated that.
So it was basically at the guy's pace most of the time.
Which is like
I
lightning speed.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it would be like maybe on the second date, sometimes the first date, and then obviously they're getting what they want, so they're not committing to me. And then I did experiment where I was like, okay, let me wait a month or two, and they got what they wanted. But because I was still allowing them to ghost me, so like perhaps they would come back a month or a few weeks later, and then I'd give it up to them, they would disappear. So it's kind of like I wasn't really firm in myself and standing up for myself. So when it came to sex, they got what they wanted, going at their pace, and then just walking away.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why when, the women in my program, what I do recommend is that they do not have sex with the men that they're dating until they're in an exclusive relationship,
I
right?
agree. Yeah.
Because most men will try to go there because they're men, and men generally are looking for sex and find love, and women are looking for love and have sex along the way, right? And so
Yeah.
oftentimes it might get hot and heavy. You may be kissing, but at that moment, it is important to say, I would love to have sex, but I just don't do that with someone that I'm not in an exclusive relationship with. What that does ultimately is it triggers something in a man's mind where it is the question is not about do I want to continue hanging out with her or not, right? Because men are very much in the present tense. Then the question about the relationship is more about do I want to be exclusive with her or not? And that's what he's going to continue to be thinking about from that point onward. And then you get a clear understanding of if he does because he's going to make moves to get there or not, right? So I think it's important. And one thing I wanted to ask you about kind of being the nice girl in sex is that talk to me about kind of your education or experience with sex, I guess growing up, right? Was that something that was talked about a lot or not really? Who taught you about it? Who taught you about sexual agency, all of that?
It was kind of me just figuring it out. I mean, my mom literally said to me, because she was very open about sex, but I didn't feel comfortable going to her to talk about it. But I remember her just telling me basically, tell boys you're not a virgin because that's they're not going to want you, because she was like, most boys just will want you for sex, I think when I was, yeah, a teenager, just when I started high school. So basically, she
Mom,
just said,
mom's killing me over
I
here,
know,
girl. We
but
love mom, but we
yeah,
don't know if she set you up for success here.
right. And for me, it was kind of like, especially at that age when you're in like high school, I don't want to tell guys that I'm not a vet.
Right,
Like, no way, because when you do that, one thing they're going to say you're a hoe regardless. So
right.
that's something. So I never really told guys that. And I remember the first time I lost my virginity, I was 18 and I really liked this guy. Again, my mind, we are in a relationship. That's just what I thought. Like we're hanging out, he's kissing me, he's told me that he likes me. So we do the deeds, and then he basically rejected me. The Within a few days, the conversations just got less. I found out that he liked another girl, and that led me to think that there was something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't pretty enough, or I just lacked something. So that kind of stunted me and made me think like I'm not good enough. So I guess as well that added onto the nice girl of wanting please
Yeah,
to please guys. Yeah.
yeah. You're a Black woman. What do you
Yeah.
think that your race had to also do with this nice girl syndrome?
That is, yeah, that is key. I felt like if I was to speak up and voice myself, I'll be labeled as the angry Black woman. So I think
Yeah.
that's probably why I kept myself in a box, especially at work. I didn't want to speak up for myself because I didn't want to come across as the angry girl or the problem person.
Yeah.
With guys as well, I didn't want to be seen as, the typical angry Black woman, you're all the same. So it's kind of like, well, let me be different. Let me be
Hmm.
nice. Let me see if this will work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And in doing so, it sounded like you put yourself or limited yourself in terms of the way that you were able to express emotion and just your general
Yes.
abbiness.
Yeah, I kept all my abbiness in a box, which is so sad because the other day I did my meditation, like an inner child healing.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting because for the first time I had heard my inner child, and I went back to 11-year-old Abbey, who was so fun, talkative. And she said to me, like, you just stopped being out there, you stopped being outgoing. And I was like, wow, this was around about the age of like entering my teenage years of
Yeah.
just wanting to not be the angry Black woman. So I just kind of went into my box.
Yeah. Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting too because they often say that age range between 7 and 12, it actually just beats girls up. It
Yeah.
beats them up. Like when you're 5, 6, and 7, like all the girls are ruckus girl, they're running around, they're doing whatever, all of this. And then that age range, there's something about how they're treated with boys, like I guess how the insults happen or the bullying
Yeah.
or what have you, both from boys and girls, to the point where we want to be liked so much. I can um, sympathize and empathize because I think as a gay child growing up, I also felt the same way, right? That
Yeah.
like I know I'm different and I need to be accepted and I need to find ways in which I can be loved and valued and seen. And so, there's a variety of ways of doing that. But ultimately, I also played the nice girl syndrome in a lot of different ways to try to be liked, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't me. I couldn't talk my shit.
Right. Exactly. Because you just feel it inside. It's tugging at you. It's
Yeah.
like, why are
Yeah.
you saying, it's like, why are you saying yes when you know you want to say no?
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing about that too is that men can sense when you kind of don't want to do something, but you're saying yes, or when you get a little bit quiet, because sometimes women will do this. They'll get quiet when they're upset instead of speak their truth.
Yeah.
And I want to offer to women out there that do that is emotional dishonesty, right? And when women do that, when you're playing the nice girl and you don't want to ruffle any feathers, it's going to be hard for him to trust you because you're saying one thing, but your energy and your existence is saying a completely different thing. And so I want to just kind of encourage everyone out there that does play that nice girl role, that you're not doing yourself any favors, because ultimately when he sees you as two-faced or two-personed, he's not going to trust you, and it's not, the connection cannot be super deep. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with
Yeah.
that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you obviously have gotten out of your nice girl syndrome a bit. What sort of things did you do to help get there, right? Were there certain exercises or actions that you took?
Yeah, first of all, I just went back to myself and I was like, we have to honor how we truly feel. Even if it's uncomfortable, you have to be able to speak up for yourself. So, getting out of the nice girl thing meant that I had to be more confident in myself. And the way I did that was through just listening to daily affirmations and envisioning the woman that I wanted to become. And the woman I wanted to be was someone who said no and felt okay with it. And it was hard at first, but I found that I mean, when you say no as well, you don't have to do it in a mean way.
Right.
So I was like, I can still say no to my friends, like, or to guys, like, I just don't feel like it. I don't want to right now. It's too soon for me. And I found in doing that, I felt like I felt a lot more peaceful in myself because I was honoring how I truly feel. So, yeah, just by doing affirmations and building my confidence, it just gave me the ability to break out of that nice girl box to say
What were some
no.
of, yeah, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. What were some of your favorite affirmations?
So, like, I am confident, I am love, I am enough, I am beautiful, I can say no, I am powerful. Just, yeah, just things like that. And at first, it felt really strange to say it.
Yeah.
But the more I said it, the more it just became comfortable for me. Like it didn't feel strange. And then I started looking in the mirror when I said it, and I noticed I started to like stand up taller with my shoulders back. And it's
Yeah.
just like, I am enough.
Yeah.
And it's okay to honor myself. And with that, yeah, my confidence grew. And I found that when people would ask me to do something like, hey, Abby, are you free? I found myself just saying, no, not tonight. And how about another night without really thinking bad, like, oh, I've just said no. Are they going to hate me? What does this mean? Or he's asked me out and I'm not able to make it, rather than me just, rearranging my schedule like the old me.
Right.
I'm like, I can't, I've actually got work to do. So I wasn't worried, like, oh my gosh, is he going to reschedule? Will he call me back? I didn't care because I'm like, something, I'm honoring me. And that's the
Yeah.
most important thing. I'm putting me first.
How long did it take you to get to that point from these affirmations are weird until I'm starting to believe these affirmations?
I would say about like 3 months of really doing it every single day, because the
Yeah.
first month I'm like every other day, not consistently. But I found when
Yeah.
I just stuck to 3 months of doing it and putting it into practice, it felt good, especially when I started doing the mirror work as well. When I looked in the mirror, that helped.
Yeah, I think that this is so important to realize, because I think people think that I'll do affirmations for a week and then it's going to be solved and it's going to be over,
Yeah.
and that's not the case. That this actually takes consistent work, and that's one of the reasons why my program is 6 months, because these first 3 months are like really just getting your footing and grounding in terms of the new woman that you are to be, or who you're destined to be, and then the last 3 months is really about, okay, now that we have that, let's really find our person.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it does take a good amount of time. One of the things that I do too is, like, in my journal every day, I write 5 beliefs or affirmations about myself, my business, my life, that I believe, that I feel, that I want to continue, because I think it is powerful work, even in the
Yeah.
subconscious area, definitely. You also mentioned about understanding or creating a future self, right? Which is like who do I want to be? What does she look like? How does she live her life? How does she relate to other people? What does she do professionally? What does she do personally? Right? All of that. And so what were some of the things that your future self did that you weren't doing at that moment? I know that you mentioned besides saying no, but besides that, were there other things that you needed to do or be that sorry, I was hearing some dogs.
It's all right.
I'm like, who's attacking what? That you had to be or you had to do.
Yes, so one of the things that I did was take care of myself in terms of maintenance. So this was very weird for me, but when I started to go out, I slowly started to dress.
I have to pause. I need to see what the
Yeah, no
hell's going
worries.
on.
No worries.
Let's just wait a minute. There's
Yeah,
some
sure.
crazy ass dogs in the neighborhood that,
Oh gosh.
yeah. Cece, you'll just edit all that BS out
Okay.
with the dogs. Yeah. Okay. Ready to rock and roll again?
Yep.
Okay. So I was asking, what were some of the differences in terms of the woman that you needed to be that you weren't necessarily kind of doing in your life at that time? Who did you need to be? What did you need to do?
Yeah, so I envisioned a woman who was very well dressed. One of the things I wasn't really doing was taking care of myself in terms of like maintenance wise. It's not that I
Uh-huh.
was going out of the house looking
A hot mess.
scruffy, but yeah. But I wasn't putting effort into the way that I looked.
Yeah.
So I reconnected with my femininity, which was very strange for me, being more softer in the summertime. I started wearing dresses, doing makeup, doing my hair, which was weird for me because people were staring at me. It's like I was now a new me. I was being seen,
Yeah.
and I had to get comfortable with being seen. I'm not gonna lie, like since COVID, I've kind of fallen off, but back then I was getting ready to go out because another thing was like with my mum. I love her. I love her. I love her so much. But like not dressing up, but like just putting effort into the way that I looked when I went out. It kind of wasn't enforced. She was more or less, if you're going out, then you can look well. But if you're just going down the road, you can just house clothes. Fair enough. But I decided just for me that even if I am going down the road, I want to look the best that I can that
Yeah.
day, even if it's just short errands. So yeah, I put effort into how I looked, and I found that that did help build my confidence.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Um, One of the things that I know that's a part of being the nice girl, that it's also rooted in trying to have things perfect and trying to make them look like the fantasy that one really idealizes, right?
Yeah.
In one's head. So, what's been your experience with that? How have you tried to, create the fantasy in your dating and relationship life?
For me, it was literally just, okay, be the nice girl, and he's going to choose you. Just shut up, smile, let him take the lead, don't make a fuss. And yeah, because you're nice, he's going to pick you, and you will, if you're lucky, get married and live happily ever after. That was
Yeah.
the fantasy for me.
And when did you realize that that fantasy is not doable or workable? Or have you?
The, yeah, the moment I finished chemotherapy, I noticed that yeah, I need to wake up basically because it's
Yeah.
clearly not happening. When I looked back at the evidence, I was like, yeah, this isn't working out. Being the nice girl, just keeping quiet, letting them get away with whatever, and not speaking up for yourself, it clearly isn't working for you. So
Yeah.
I had to snap out of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you've mentioned this a little bit earlier about like being the nice girl to also to be seen. And one of the things that I know that's really kind of prevalent in the women that I work with is that um, it's often because they weren't necessarily seen by either their mother and their father in some way. Either it was like emotional neglect, or so it kind of manifests itself in making sure that the life is perfect, it's pretty, that there are no flaws to it, nobody can say anything about you, right? And, you know, we are always looking to be chosen because ultimately when we were growing up we were not chosen, right? We were not first, we were not put on the pedestal that we needed to be put on. But I'm so glad that you're able to share that, because I think a lot of people will really resonate with that if I just smile, laugh at their corny jokes, and just wait and nod, that they're gonna make me their wife. And that's not the case at all. That
No.
ultimately, especially in 2021, women, you are the ones that are choosing, right? And you
Yes.
choose through telling these men what you want and giving them space to actually deliver on it. That's how you lead a relationship. And if you're not comfortable asserting your voice, if you're not comfortable speaking about what you like and what you don't like, if you can't say no, that means you can't really say yes in an honest way. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Y- I was no, I totally agree, because if you had said that to me like before, I would have been so uncomfortable. I would literally would have been like, no, it's not possible for me to actually say what I want and say how I feel. I just, yeah, I could not have, I would have felt so uncomfortable
Yeah.
because I
No,
would have pushed him away.
it's an uncomfortable truth, right? You wouldn't
Yeah,
have pushed him away. You would have pushed the wrong guy away, the guy that's not for you, right? And I think that we
yeah,
have to also reframe that in understanding that the guy that is going to be your guy is going to love everything about you and is going to want to make everything you say, every ask, every demand, every request, he's going to want to make it happen for you. And for those men that do not want to make it happen for you, those are not your men. And that's okay. And 99% of the guys out there are not going to be your men. And that's okay. Right? We just have to figure
yeah,
out those guys who are good, high quality men that are focused on you as the top priority and not themselves. Right? And the majority of men are
absolutely.
totally about themselves
Yeah,
ultimately. Okay. So, we kind of talked a little bit about being the nice girl and the fantasy that's involved with it, but um, I want to get a little bit real. I want to talk
yeah,
about kind of the messy side of being the nice girl, because oftentimes what I've noticed too is that, yes, there are tons of nice girls out there. But what I also know is that a lot of those nice girls have a lot of hot, messy things that happen that they just don't talk about. Because they want to keep up the facade, right?
yeah.
Perfection and all of that. So what did that look like for you as it relates to dating and relationship? You share your mess, I'll share mine.
Sure. So I guess well, when I was dating this Italian guy, well, there's been a few Italian guys, but one of them in particular who I really, really liked, he was living still with his girlfriend.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I know, well, he had told me that they had broken up and that she's living there because she has nowhere else to stay. And
Uh-huh,
I
sure,
was,
girl.
yeah, absolutely. So that was probably one of my messiest things, of just trying to see a guy who's clearly got a girlfriend, but
And
he's
how long
telling
were you
me
with this guy?
not long at all. It wasn't long. Probably on whole, it could have stretched like at least 5 months of not being consistent. So in and out, in and out. And I
Got it.
guess when I saw him, she was probably
He
out.
was on
Well,
the
I don't.
outs with her. Yes,
This is it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is weird because, Paris is literally a small place. And it's just like, I could see him or her at any time. Not that I knew what she looked like, but yeah. Being a nice girl as well. Um, when I was living in Toronto, that's a story. I really liked this guy. And back then I had lack of understanding about how it works. Sorry, should I talk about this now or should I talk about it after
No,
I've
say
moved to
it, tell
Paris?
it now, girl. Tell all this
Okay.
tea, girl. So
Yep.
you had met some guy in Toronto and you said you
Yeah.
didn't know how it worked. You didn't know how what worked.
I didn't really know how relationships worked.
Uh-huh.
So this was the first time since I had lost my virginity and I had finally like reconnected with a guy and actually have a guy show me interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I assumed that this is the one because he likes me, he's interested in me. And he had to go back to France. He had to leave Toronto. And my gosh, I can't believe what I did. I couldn't stop thinking about him like
Girl, you were
all the
obsessed. You
time.
were you were addicted.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
say
literally.
love is as addictive as heroin and cocaine. So I don't want you to shame yourself in thinking that, you were addicted to this guy. Girl, you were addicted. And I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I left like my best life in Toronto basically to go and be with him. And I knew nothing about French culture, did not speak the language, never learned it in school.
Oh my girl.
I just knew that I was going to be with him, the happy ever after. And I realized, Abby, you need to go to Paris because you've never been before. You don't even know what it's like. So I went for a few days. I got in contact with him because we hadn't even been speaking. This is how crazy it was.
Girl.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Girl. I cannot. Say more. Say
Well,
more.
we were speaking, but back then, on Facebook where you poke, that was our
Oh, girl,
communication.
y'all were poking and you're about to move countries for a
I'm telling,
poke?
I'm telling you.
Girl.
Yes, I was obsessed. So when I had reached out to him, I realized, Abby, you know something? You're pretty crazy because when I replayed it back, I'm like, this isn't even your boyfriend. What have you done? Anyway, I'm like, I've given up everything in Toronto. I'm in Paris now. So I saw him just for a few days and I said, hey, next month I'm coming to Paris. I went with an open mind when I went to see him because I had realized, we're not together. So obviously he can just be like, okay, cool, whatever. So we met up and I said, I'm moving to Paris. And he grabbed my hand and he was just like, I'm so happy that you're coming. I can help you find a place. In fact, if you want, you can stay with me and my mom. And I was like, oh, that's really nice of you to offer. But it would just be nice if you can help me find my own place. So yeah, it felt like old times, just holding hands, kissing. And I was like, I'll see you next month. Keep in touch because, I'm coming to Paris. Yay.
Uh-huh.
Went back home to London. And I don't know if you've ever tried to find an apartment in Paris,
It's
but it is
impossible.
literally.
It's impossible.
And when I say I had no idea about Paris, I knew nothing. So I'm looking for all these locations and I sent some to him and he's like, girl, this isn't even in Paris. It's like far outside Ile-de-France. You need to look
Yeah.
inside Ile-de-France. So that was something I learned. And I noticed he wasn't really responding to me or like, have you tried this place? Have you tried that place? So I actually held back. I didn't communicate. Poking stopped. And
Uh-huh. That little bit of communication that you all were doing, girl, I cannot with you.
I can't with myself either. So
It's good that we can laugh about it now, right? I'm sure it
thank
was
God.
it was a
Oh yeah,
pretty
you're gonna hear the tears. So I noticed that he wasn't responding now that I've let go. The communication had stopped and I'd found a job. So I was like, okay, we're going to Paris. We're just not going to be with him. And a month after I arrived, I got a message from him, but I just decided to ignore it. It was just basically quad enough, like what's new. And I'm thinking, how are you going to ask me what's new when you knew I was coming to Paris? You knew that I needed help to find somewhere. So I ignored the message. And then 3 months later, he uploaded a picture of him and a girl on Facebook.
oh girl.
And my heart broke. When I tell you
Mm,
that the tears came, they came. And I was just, I felt so stupid, basically. Live and learn. And this is why I'm sharing this experience, because I don't want
yeah,
any girl out there to basically make life-changing decisions for a guy that's, well, don't even do it for a boyfriend, do it for a husband, please.
right,
So yeah, so I saw the picture of them two, and I was like, okay, so this makes sense. This explains basically the lack of communication and why he wasn't interested in me.
right.
So I sent him a message and I was like, you didn't have to lie to me when we met in Paris. You didn't have to pretend that you were going to help me and that you were into me. And he read the message and that was it.
Left you on red.
Didn't respond.
Yeah.
Left me on red. Two blue ticks. And I was just like, okay, I'm already here in Paris. So I was just like, I'm going to enjoy my life. And that's what I did. 3 years later, I saw him by the Latour Field. There was like a football event. So they had like this big screen. There was like thousands of people. And my friend, she's from Chicago. She has like the loudest voice ever. And I remember just seeing him, and I grabbed my friend. She almost spilt her beer. We just went into the crowd. She's like, "What's going on? Why are you dragging me like this?" And I was like, "That's him." She's like, "Who?" with her loud voice. So like,
Uh-huh. We're
so
loud
happy to be
Americans, girl. Get
right.
used to it.
So I was so happy to be far from him. And she was like, "Who is it?" I was like, "That's the guy. This is who I came to Paris for." She was like, "No way. Go over and say hi to him. Introduce yourself." And I was like, "You know what? No, like, I really don't want him to know anything about me, how I'm doing. Like, I just feel like it's none of his business. And I'm over him now." That's when I realized, like, I am actually over him. Not that I spent 3 years on him, but it was just that realization of how I had matured. And
Yeah.
so that same year, he sent me a message. It was around about like Christmas. Yeah, coming up to the new year. 3 years later, just to apologize. He was like, he had a dream about me. You know how it goes, blah, blah, blah. He wanted to reach out, and he
I'm rolling
basically,
my eyes for all the
me
audio listeners
too.
out there.
Right.
Eyes are rolled back and forward.
Yeah.
I'm back at it. Yeah.
He apologized to me, and I read it, and I just didn't respond. I left him on red because the truth is, I had already forgiven him. And most importantly, I had forgiven myself.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I don't want any contact from him, because after 3 years, it's like, I really don't need that apology. Thank
Yeah.
you, but no thanks. So,
Yeah. Good
yeah,
for
I
you,
just,
girl. Good for you. Thank you for sharing that story because I feel like we need to be sharing more of those stories with each other, our, girlfriends, because everyone's been through it. We just don't talk about
exactly,
it.
yes.
And one thing about your story that I think is really interesting, because I've known quite a few people that have moved cross country or to a different country for a dude, is when you do that, he's actually going to think less of you, because ultimately what's going to happen is he's going to feel like she's going to be relying on me for everything, which means that she is not as independent as I would like her to be, which means that I cannot see her as a partner who is contributing in the same amount that I would contribute to a partnership or a unit, right? And a guy doesn't want to be your everything, right? And when you make moves like that, I think it does signal that. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to realize, if there are any women out there that are listening to this podcast right now that are about to move for a dude,
Yeah.
and you are not married, he is not engaged, he has not shown up for you in any way, shape, or form, do not do it.
Yeah.
Please do not do it. I think that's the moral
Yeah.
of the story. Okay, my mess. So after I graduated university, I lived in Germany for 2 years, in Berlin and Hamburg, and I was doing some consulting there. And I had met someone, a guy, his name was Michael, and instantly he showed up, we dated, he called me every night. And for someone who was an expat, right, and feeling
Mm-hmm.
super lonely, that was like everything
Yeah.
to me. Plus, and I have mentioned this before in this podcast, my dad abandoned me when I was in second or third grade. So someone that
Okay.
was consistent and reliable just like meant so much to me, especially in that moment. And so um he had proposed to me. But after I was done with my consulting, I told him I didn't know. I said, that sounds really
Okay.
good, but I don't know what's going on. Went back to the US just for like a summer to be with my friends and my family and things like that. And then basically he was like, I miss you. I want you to be here. And in my heart of hearts, I was done with the country. I was like, okay, like, I need to like move on with my life. It was an experience. But something about the nice girl syndrome in me was like, let me create the fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Let me make it look really good. Let me feel like I'm saving the day in some way, shape, or form. And so I got myself some shitty internship at Adidas and serious instead of like a full-on job. And I moved there. When I moved there, he was depressed. He had never told me he was depressed. He was
Oh my
on
gosh.
drugs. He was like,
What?
he lost his job. He was selling the drugs. Girl, it was a freaking mess. I was stuck because I was like, I'm here. Then I was like trying to help him. And I was just like in a really crazy place. I gave up the Adidas job to even help him and get him
Oh
on the
my
right
gosh.
path. Girl, he was stealing my money out of my
No.
bank account. Yes, I had
What?
no money. Girl, the most embarrassing part of my entire, one of the most embarrassing things in my life was having to call my best friend and say, girl, I have no money. I have nothing. I need to get back home. Can you please pay for a flight to get me? Of course she did it because she's my
Wow.
friend. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Yuiko. I love you. I will never not love you. And I lived with my grandmother for a year and got back on my feet because I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. And I had nothing in the name of love, right? In the name of the
Yeah.
fantasy, and the name of trying to be the savior, and the name of trying to be the nice guy or the nice girl, right? And try to make everything
Yeah.
perfect and great. And it was not perfect and it was not great. And I should have asked more questions instead of just trying to wrap it all in a bow and try to
Yes.
have this romantic story about how we met in Germany and I came back and now I'm going to live this beautiful expat life. And no, girl, that's not what it's about. Right. So, anyway, we all have those stories. And I think it's important
Yes.
to be very honest about it. And so I'm happy that you were sharing that and that we could share that together on this podcast. Um, okay. So, I think that is really, really good. I will just say, I think we can wrap up now. So,
Yeah. Okay.
um, so Coach Abbey, I want to thank you so much for sharing so much of your story and sharing so many amazing perspectives as it relates to this nice girl syndrome. For the listeners that are out there and want to connect with you and want more self-love, how can they connect with you?
They can find me on Instagram, which is Abbey here. That's ABBEYHERE, or coachabby.com.
I love that so much. I love that so much. Abbey, Coach Abbey, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
And thank you. I enjoyed being here.
Awesome,
Thank you.
awesome. All right. All right, my loves. Until the next time. Bye.
Bye.